Do, 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 do. Scott here. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. You may have noticed the song is a little bit different this week. Unfortunately, the copyright rights have changed with the song that we had chosen to use for our show when we started this out. But we are currently working with an amazing Utah producer who is customizing a great song for our intro and extra coming up in the next couple weeks. So we apologize for not having a great song to get you in the mood for the amazing episode coming up, but it doesn't change the information and the messages that we have coming for you today. So thank you for tuning in, and we can't wait to share the new music and intro with you as soon as it's ready in the next few weeks. Until then, doot, 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 doot. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the show. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of Surviving Life's Pickles. We want to start off by saying thank you to each and every one of you for taking time out of your day today to tune into us and listen to our most wonderful guest we have today and the message and information that we want to share with you guys. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy life to hang out with us. We appreciate it. So before we get started, I will introduce Sarah here. Sarah Galvez. Galvez,
Yes.
I messed it up already.
Always destroy it.
I do. She is here today, and we're going to have an amazing conversation about suicide prevention, talk about it in the general industry, construction, manufacturing, and how to kind of integrate some of these programs into your day-to-day training at work. But before we dive into that, we're going to start off with what we're grateful for today.
And you're looking at me, so I know you're going to pick me first.
You're going to go first.
I am super grateful today for silver linings and the life that I have today. I lost a coworker today, and it was sad, but there are some silver linings to it, that it's brought a lot of people together. And it makes me just grateful for my life, and it makes me grateful for my family and just being able to wake up in the morning, because there's a lot of people that don't get to wake up today. So that's what I'm grateful for today.
Thank you. Sarah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for my friends and my family. And I know that sounds really cliche, but I just feel like I've been going through a lot, and I have such a great support system with my friends and my family. And I'm just really grateful for them.
They keep us going, don't they?
You know, they keep you grounded, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's cliche, because our friends and family are really some of the most important things to us.
They are.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the reason you get up the next morning. Well, for me, this is a weird one today, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to kind of be able to control my schedule. I'm not tied to, I have to be at an office building from at this time in the morning. I get to leave at this time during the day. I'm able to move about, go out, work, but make my own schedule to adapt to the needs of the family, the needs that I have. And sometimes, like today, it was super crazy. Then I think about it, and I was the one who made it crazy because I set that schedule and I made that happen. So it's my fault that I was stressed out. And then I realized it, and I just took a breath, and it was okay. So I am extremely grateful that we're in a place now where I'm able to make that schedule. I'm able to control it. I don't have anybody telling me I have to be here at a certain time, other than when customers break down and they need parts in the middle of the night. So as we get into this, as we were saying earlier, as we started, Sarah's got some great things that she's doing in the industry, teaching some QPR training, a few other courses. You're a public speaker, you're out talking in front of audiences, then you're also getting right down and dirty with businesses and helping them, it sounds like.
Yeah. Anybody that will listen,
Yeah.
I will help them.
So let's talk a little bit about you, kind of what you're doing, how you got to this place you're at now, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the stuff you said that's coming up. So,
Okay. Well, I started doing this because my ex-husband and the father of my youngest son died by suicide. And I went to a QPR training, and I thought it could be done better. And I thought that it was just too powerful, too important of a subject to not be done well, and to seem just prepared and passionate and genuine about it. And I know you're not doing that if you're not, but it needed more, in my opinion. And so that's how I started doing it. That's how I started talking at conferences or wherever people will have me.
And you were saying that's been about 3 years that
Yeah,
you've
it's
been
been
doing that then?
3 years since he died. So,
I always ask this, and we kind of talked before, but did you really see yourself ever really going down this avenue before that?
oh, never,
Yeah.
never.
It's amazing how that one quick experience can change our path, how we influence and help each other.
Yeah, I never would have thought that I'd really be doing any kind of public speaking. Anything that I had spoke about usually had stuff to do with um, traumatic brain injuries or the military. My brother was a Marine, so never in a million years would I have thought suicide prevention and awareness is something I'd talk about.
Yeah. And kind of be a cornerstone what you're doing now.
Yeah.
I have to commend you because not everybody can take that. We say it all the time, pain into purpose.
Yeah.
And the fact that that's been something that's helped you to help other people is extremely amazing and definitely commendable.
Thank you. If I can help just like one person to not go through what we have gone through as a family.
Well, and I know you talked about traumatic brain injury, and I know you've had one of those. That sounds like it's a whole story on its own.
It is.
Kind of got to where you are today. So that might be another episode. But just knowing you've had that in the past, I have to just commend you as well, because getting through those, I actually worked for a physical therapist, chiropractor office that treats specifically brain injuries, and seeing what happens to those people after that, a lot of them don't come out the same person.
They don't. I didn't. I think I'm the same person, but people who know me tell me that
Say you're different.
yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely does change you. So, and you've had quite the ride. So, well, let's talk about it a little bit. Your ex-husband 3 years ago died by suicide, left you to raise your son alone. How was that first couple weeks, or even maybe just the first couple hours of when that happened? Because there's a lot that goes on, and I know people that haven't been through it don't quite understand what happens. And so I always like to kind of talk about how that was.
It's devastating. I mean, I probably woke up every day for like the first 6 months, probably just crying. Like, this cannot be my reality. This cannot be Max's reality and my son, because I feel like I was one of the last people to talk to his dad before he died. He had called me the night before and he was very distraught, more distraught than I'd ever heard him. And I, talked him off the ledge for that night, I guess. But I feel like I failed him. And because I failed him, then I failed Max. And so that's how I felt for a long time.
Do you mind giving us a little bit of the backstory of the experiences that led up to his death and maybe talking us through a little bit of that?
Yeah. So he lived here, his family lived here, but then they all ended up moving away.
Mm.
And that was hard. He said he felt kind of alone. And then he was with this girl and that fell apart and just some really bad things happened that way. But he was devastated. He thought, he's like, we were going to get married. We were going to have kids. I'd always tease him. I'd be like, you're old now. Like, you're going to be a grandpa, dad. He's just like, I don't care. Like, we're getting married. We're going to have kids. And then it all just ended. And he was devastated. And he just kept hoping like that she was going to change her mind and come back. And he called me that night and told me what had happened on the phone with her. And I was just like, Andy, like, let me help you pack the rest of her stuff. I'll take it to the DI. We can put it on the curb, whatever, And then the next morning, like, he had talked to me on the phone that night, and it was 12:30. And he was just like, I'm sorry, I don't know who else to call. And like I said, he was very distraught. And I was like, 30, like everybody's sleeping. I just happened to hear the vibrating on my phone, which is crazy because like I can't hear anything. I
Yeah.
wear hearing aids. And so, but I heard that. And so we talked and finally I asked him, I said, are you thinking about making a permanent decision to a temporary problem? And he was like, I'm trying not to.
Hmm.
but he's like, "It's really hard. I'm trying not to." I was like, "Think about your mom, think about your dad, think about your brothers, think about Max." And he was like, "Max is the only thing that's been keeping me hanging on."
Yeah.
And then he just kind of like changed. He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go home."
Mhm.
And he just like sounded normal. And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "You better check in with me in the morning." I was like, "Because if you don't, I'm gonna send people to your house, and I know you don't want that." And I called him around 9, and he didn't answer. And I called him and I texted him, and I was like, "Well, maybe he just called in sick to work and slept in because he'll do that sometimes when he has a really crappy night, you know?" And I really wanted to go to his house and check on him, but something just kept me from doing that. I was like, "No, I should go be at this really pointless meeting at 3 o'clock this afternoon." And like a pointless meeting. Like I didn't need to go. It was flexible schedule. I didn't need to be there, but something was like keeping me from going there.
Mhm.
And with Max, I was like, "Hey, um, do me a favor and text dad like every 30 minutes or something until you hear from him." And he was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Well, because it's Tuesday. He's supposed to pick you up. And I can't get a hold of him because I didn't want it to seem like something was wrong."
Yeah.
And about noon, I wanted to do a welfare check. And I told myself I was being silly. And then around 2, I found his roommate on Facebook and sent her a message and was just like, "Hey, I'm worried about Andy." And she's like, "Yeah, he was being like real weird last night, but both of his cars were home when I left." And she goes, "You should take Max and go to the house." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, I can't be there till 3." And I was like, "Yeah, I can't be there till after that. So I'll just let you, deal with it." And when I got home, I was sitting at the counter and I got a call from like a blocked phone number and I answered it, which I would not normally do. And it was a detective and I asked him why he was calling me and he's like, "Well, why did you call the roommate?" And I told him and he's like, "Well, here's the deal." He's like, "We're pinging his phone." He's like, "But we can't break down the door because the guy had a shitty night. So if she can't get us into the house, then there's nothing we can do," because he had changed the door codes, locked the windows. And so I called his mom and I was like, "Hey, is Andy on the way down to," because they lived in St. George. I was like, "Have you heard from him? Anything like that?" And she's like, "No, no, why?" And I told her what happened. And she's like, "Well, I think we need to make sure both of his cars are there." And I was like, "They're both there." She's like, "Are
Mhm.
you sure?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm sure." And the detective called back and I was like, "Oh, I got to go." And he told me that they found him deceased. And so I asked him who was going to tell his mom because I knew from my EMT training that it should be me. And he he said, "It should be me." And so I called her back, and it is the worst thing
No.
I've ever done is to tell somebody, right? And they tell you in the in the safety professional world, like the worst thing you'll ever do is tell somebody that their loved one has died from a preventable workplace injury. I tell people in my sessions, like, the worst thing you will ever do is tell anybody that their loved one has died unexpectedly. And telling his mother was worse than telling Max, like your kid is your kid no matter the age.
Yeah.
And so that was, ugh. And I just felt like I needed to be there. And so I took Max's phone from him so that nobody could contact him. And I went to Andy's house.
So you didn't tell Max before you went over there
I didn't know, like, it
what
was,
what to say?
yeah. It was I started calling other people though in my family to let them know. But yeah, and so I rushed up to his house and it's just crazy, like I'm answering like questions from the medical examiner, the detective wants to interview me. It's just really it's all craziness.
How old was Max at this time?
15. And it was so let's see. They went to the Garth Brooks concert. I want to say it was at the Ricycle Stadium
Hmm.
Saturday. I want to say it was June 17th. The next day was Father's Day. They went golfing, and then, you know, Andy brought Max home on Monday, and then he was supposed to pick him up on Tuesday. And when I do my presentation, I put up a picture of Max and Andy, and that Andy had sent me from the Garth Brooks concert. And I like tell people like this is the last picture that Max has with his dad, and that's usually when people start crying.
It's hard to look at the picture probably because I'm haven't seen it personally, but I'm thinking of them just they're having a good time and smiling.
Yep.
And to know that he was at that state just a couple days later. Well, thank you for sharing. I'm sorry that you've had to go through that, but You're doing great things from this experience. I have to ask, have you ever had to do that for work? Has that ever have to happen where you've had to actually make that phone call as well?
No, I have not had to make that phone call for work. I have had an employee come into my office, though, and tell me that he wanted to kill his ex-wife and her new boyfriend and himself. And this was before Andy and before I knew much about like any kind of suicide prevention, awareness, anything like things you should say, things you shouldn't say. And that was just like crazy, like the the feeling you
Yeah.
get in your chest. And I think that too is also kind of a little triggering because back in 2006, I was the victim of an attempted murder suicide. And so to have somebody come into my office very visibly agitated, his hands balled up in fists, and just, I want to kill two people and myself, was
Mhm.
just like, holy crap. Like I'm just sitting there
It's
filling out some paperwork. And it's
Yeah.
just like, whoa.
Completely changed everything you were thinking about at the moment. Yeah.
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 And it's like, I'm like teamsing HR, like, I need EAP assistance and trying to be like, no, no, murder is wrong. You don't want to kill people. It's like,
Wow.
think of your children. Like I'm just like saying everything wrong. I'm sure you shouldn't say to somebody about it. Like,
Yeah.
reminding him like, no, we don't murder people. But as far as life-changing work stuff, I mean, the worst, I did have a really severe injury that was very life-changing for the family. And I was at the hospital in the emergency room with her husband, who's like, what am I going to tell my boys? How are we going to pay our bills? It was just, ugh.
Yeah.
So I want to ask. So I have been at a place of business as well where somebody was let go. And when they were let go, they were yelling and screaming, escorted out by security that they will be back and they are going to blow the whole place up type thing. And he was one of those guys that you take very seriously because that's the type of guy he is. He has the means at his house to be able to do something. So I want to ask, because of your status and kind of what you teach in your classes, how would you advise somebody that is in that direct situation to handle it? Or what kind of tips can you give of maybe you need to ask this or to de-escalate that type of situation?
Well, I think it's always really important that when you're in a heightened situation, when I had that employee come in, I mean, it just, right? Like
Yeah.
it was just adrenaline is like through the roof because he is showing, he was visibly agitated. Is that so it's kind of like not necessarily an emergency situation, but you will revert to your highest level of training, right? So if you've never been trained on anything, you're just shooting from the hip like I was.
Yeah.
Like, don't kill people, But I think it's really important that people actually do like some de-escalation with their companies so that you have real tips. Like I just try and talk to people, right? Right. Let them know that they matter, calm down, like let's talk about things. Here's resources, you know, let's let things like just settle with the employee that I had. We just talked,
Mhm.
right? We just sat in the office and we talked. I had an employee one time, he was actually a temp, and it was before we had security or anything like that, and he had been let go. And he came back and he was upset and he was screaming and yelling, and I'm just like, let's just go outside and talk. Let's just go outside and talk. And so for me, like it's just trying to calm people down just by talking to them,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? Let them talk, listen, validate. I feel like actively listening and being genuine is huge, right? Because people
Mhm.
know when you're not being genuine. And so that's one thing I always tell people is to be genuine, actively listen, and just talk with people.
You want to just kind of get their mind off the current moment.
Yes.
One thing that we teach in our mental health first aid that I love about it is they talk about take that person, like you're saying, and just get them to start talking because maybe that's all they need. But do it, like you said, take them outside, get them moving because all of a sudden now they're moving and they're talking. Everything they were thinking about slowly dissipates. It
Yeah.
really levels everything out.
And something that you can always try, like when this one of the methods that I talk about in my presentations is that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. And we go through and we do that is, name 5 things you can see or 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can hear, 1 thing
The mind-body bridging.
yeah.
Mm.
And, to do it slowly, have them do it with you, repeat it with you, and just try and get them to calm down, and so that's always a good one too. I have a friend, he is part of a mental health committee at his job, and they do some deep breathing exercises.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, box breathing and a few things like that. I've seen more companies try to integrate that into some of their trainings, especially in the mining world, because if you get in a situation and you're in an underground mine, you can't panic. And
Yeah.
so they're trying to integrate some of those items into their normal safety training. One, it'll help them stay calm, but two, it kind of just de-escalates that situation that they're in and makes them kind of
Mhm.
think about what needs to happen next instead of the panic mode. Um, I want to ask you,
Okay.
as far as what we've talked about so far, you're in a little bit different type of world in HR. You have the clients that are staying there.
Yes.
You have definitely had situations with, and then you've had employees. But how do you right now manage some of those situations? Because I know you've had a few. What have you done that has kind of helped de escalate some of those situations in more of an office setting?
It's very similar. One that I had not too long ago was a group of employees that were kind of just banging each other's heads together that could not get along. They were disagreeing and it became combative almost to a point where one of the employees felt threatened. The other employee was filming the incidents and the other employee didn't appreciate that. And it was getting them together. And again, the de escalation, you having an extra person in the room, having a mediator, also letting them talk and making sure that they are being heard, repeating what they're saying back to them, things like that. And then also having them the opportunity to write everything down too, putting pen to paper, having that, we call it the mind body bridging. It definitely helps them to get everything out of what they want said, having proof of it, and finding common ground with each of them. That's the most recent situation that I've had. I have had some employees that get hysterical, or we've had to let people go. There's crying or screaming or yelling, kind of like your situation, Scott. And a lot of it is let's go outside and talk and make sure that they are heard, agreeing, but also making sure that they are in a okay space to where you feel comfortable that they can leave. Because we've even had employees that came to work intoxicated, and we've even so much as offered them a ride or getting them an Uber, making sure that they're safe as they leave. Those are a couple situations that I've come across.
I really like the pen and paper. That's a good idea that I think can
Like that.
definitely
Mm.
come in handy for some
Mhm.
people.
Yeah,
So,
we do that a lot. And being an HR person, we have to document everything. So if they can document it for us, it makes it that much more easier. And you're getting all the different sides of the story as well.
well,
So,
when you do that, they are in their space. They're
Mhm.
not telling it to somebody else where they feel they're getting judged or anything. So I think that would definitely help too.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about mental health and safety and how they really should just be going hand in hand at every type of business that requires any type of safety plan. I mean, and that would go for really industrial, manufacturing, construction, mining, railroad, automotive, any of those types of businesses all have some type of safety plan in place to keep their people safe. But they don't talk about the mental health safety almost at all. I mean, slowly. There's a few companies doing it, and I love it. I will give a shout out to Whitaker Construction because they are a fantastic source when it comes to that. They're training their employees and they're doing a great job. I want to hear your thoughts. Why do you think that is so important? But why do you think they're not doing it?
Think that it's not done kind of because we weren't raised that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I was younger, depression was not mental illness. You're
Mhm.
just sad and
Yeah.
you just stop being sad, you
Yeah.
know? And we
Suck
didn't
it up.
go to therapy. Therapy was for people that had mental illness, and being sad is not a mental illness. It's a normal emotion.
Yeah.
And so that I feel like people that because I'm 43, so people who are kind of, probably even mid to late 30s up, like that's just kind of how we were raised. And that's your own personal problem. You leave that at the door. This is work, and we just make sure you don't cut yourself. We don't, how to use a forklift, know how to sit at your desk properly,
Right.
all of that kind of stuff. But a lot of companies really are, there's what is it? Gosh, I can't think of them. Big D.
Okay.
They have mental health stuff. Kennecott has mental health stuff. It's slowly really getting there. And it just, I think too, companies realize how much it impacts their company, right? It impacts your employees and not just the person who's dealing with something, but everybody around them, whether they have to pick up slack, whether they're just sitting and listening to everything. And so now they're not working. If somebody has to be gone, it just really does impact the company. It's great that there's EAP programs, but it's like you hear about EAP when you first start or around open enrollment, and then you never hear anything about it again.
Right.
When I heard that when I had the employee come in, I'm like teamsing HR. I'm like, I need EAP information like yesterday. Okay. Like send it to me now. And so I'm getting that for him and telling him what I know about the EAP, but I also knew about our personal insurance because my daughter went to some therapy, and I was like, we have unlimited mental health visits with no copay. So it's like you can use the insurance and go, and so it was nice being able to talk to him and that we have such a great benefit with our insurance that way. But it's just, we just weren't raised that way. And when I give my story and people say, of all the people that employee could have gone to, he came to the safety person. They're like, now that is what I find really, really interesting. And they're like, how did you do that? It's like, well, because I care about them, right? We try and make them feel that way. We do toolbox talks, on our safety board. I have like 988 or, just different mental wellness stuff up. And so the toolbox talks are not just work related. Maybe it's around Thanksgiving, it's food safety, it's, electrical safety with Christmas lights or ladder safety or, New Year's Eve drinking and driving, St. Patrick's Day drinking and driving. And I've had some of the supervisors complain and say, this has nothing to do with work. And we're in Utah County. This is a Mormon company. And I'm like, but not everybody is. And I've had employees come to me and say, I really appreciate this drinking and driving because it makes me feel like you care about me outside of work.
Yeah.
Right. And so then those people feel appreciated and they work well because they feel like they're cared about. Now, like that employee that came into my office, he was gone for like 2 months. I had no idea what happened to him. I was off one day and I got a call from security saying that they had to call the police. And like, that was it. I was just like, I'm just wondering what happened. And I'm like, I don't think I can ask. So, and then one day I was walking out of the building and he was walking in or vice versa. There he was. And he's like, yeah, I had to go get help. But, they had to replace him for those 2 or 3 months, however long he was gone. Right. So like that affected the company.
Yeah.
Training, paying somebody else. And so it's important that we offer that kind of stuff. And you don't want to have people come and, maybe have some kind of act of violence at work. I think that is something that companies are starting to look at that stuff as part of the mental wellness too.
And they just don't realize. So years ago, man, when was this? You might remember back in 2004, 2005, over in Pleasant Grove at the Water District. Do you remember about the murder-suicide that happened over there?
No.
Yeah, so an employee had an altercation with his boss. Lived only a couple blocks away, drove home, got a shotgun, came back, shot his boss, and then shot himself, and then hid himself in the locker because he didn't succeed. So he's now in prison, but that was my uncle that I had married into. And it can happen like that. People don't understand, but you've got to have the de-escalation skills. You've got to have more situation awareness. And the only way to get a lot of that is actually to sit down and do the training. You just can't say, I'm going to be more situational aware today and just go on with your life. And I know that there's some companies out there to say, just keep your eyes out a little bit better. No, you actually need to understand how to read situations and understand body language and verbiage and all the things that come along with somebody who is extremely agitated.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. The company that I work at now doesn't have like a lot of security, like physical security. And it's weird because like I work for a makeup company and we had a whole security team. Like it's a makeup company, but so they did lots of training on, what to look out for and how to do things and what if this happens. And, we worked a lot with Lehigh PD and yeah, it's important. It's very, very important.
To have that. Well, and one thing that I talked about at the conference where we met, I talked about the situation of I was noticing things about fellow employees and said, hey, we need to look into this. And you still got that's their personal business remark. And that one was really the catalyst that kind of drove me that there was an issue. There is a big issue in this industry if that's how we're still treating people. And so what do you do, or how do you start teaching that in some of your courses you teach when you're talking to these companies and safety directors about how to integrate and be more aware, especially if somebody comes to you and say, I've noticed this?
Well, first, like I tell everybody, like you need to be an active listener and you need to make people feel heard and validated. Sometimes, even if you think what they're saying is crazy, when I was running one of the safety committees, these people would come to me with the most insane ideas. And I would say, okay, like, I really don't think this is going to work, but you know what? I'm going to pitch the idea anyways. And then I could best, yeah, they didn't go.
They didn't like it. Yeah.
They didn't go for it.
But you listened.
But and not only did I listen though, I followed through on what I would say with them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would do the same thing. Like when somebody's like, oh, hey, so and so is being kind of weird, I'd be like, okay, well, we'll go tell security or HR, whoever we needed to tell. But it's like you have to pay attention to things, especially nowadays, because like you said, things can happen so fast and you have no idea what anybody's capable of.
Yeah.
When that employee left my office that said he wanted to kill his ex-wife and stuff, I was just like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Because like he came to me in confidence, but like, it's an employee and what if he actually did something and like I don't know what he's capable of. You don't know what people are capable of now.
Right.
And you don't know where people are at, in their breaking point. When we talk about mental wellness and the suicide awareness and prevention, I always start my courses with like how we talk about suicide because you never know who is listening. The person at the workstation next to you, in line at the McDonald's behind you. You don't know what people are dealing with.
And you can set them off just by a conversation they overheard. And that's the first thing they talk about in any suicide prevention course that we've been to is it's the verbiage. It's how you talk about it.
Yeah.
You need to be direct. Don't beat around the bush, making sure they understand.
Yeah.
It's kind of some key points.
And so with work, I just try and put mental wellness. It's just a regular part of safety. We go over it. And when we do orientation safety training, when we do reoccurring training, it's part of, we do these like safety depth of knowledge worksheets, usually stuff. It's all really easy stuff you should know. And I would rotate questions in and out of there. So there's one on mental wellness. We'd have the stuff up on the board, on the safety board. So it's just always something that we talk about.
Yeah.
And then even
You're normalizing it.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then even like the forklift instructor or operators, I was the instructor. I tell them, if you're having a bad day, don't get on the forklift, right? Like that's whenever we've had an incident was the number. I got in a fight. I was distracted. This, that, but it's usually somebody had had a bad day.
Yeah. So
I'm like, if you're having a bad day, don't get on the forklift. And tell your supervisor, I'm not getting on the forklift today. And if they get upset, then you send them to me. That's one thing that I always told people, employees, is like, I will always take the heat for you. If you are doing something that is for safety, I will always take the heat for you.
Well, they have to feel safe. And a lot of the companies, especially the big ones, they really promote that. They really talk about don't do it if you don't feel it's safe for you. And if it is, walk away. And you need to do the same thing with the mental health, like you're saying. You need to understand that if you don't feel like getting on the forklift today, don't do it. If you don't feel like getting on that big piece of machinery today, don't do it. There's a reason you have that feeling before you do it. And I love how you said that you integrated toolbox talks and just normalizing it. And the places that I have seen that have started that, it changes the entire dynamic. And I tell the story about my friend who was struggling, finally told his employees that were underneath him, hey, I'm going through this. So they had a better idea of understanding.
Yes.
Now he opened up to them. And now all of this is slowly over a couple months came to, they talk about it at every safety meeting and goes around and ask everybody. And they know if they're not having a good time, they can pull them aside at the end of the meeting and say, hey, we need to talk about this.
Yep.
And has made that more of the actual open door policy. I know a lot of companies say they have an open door policy, but a lot of that isn't just completely true. It's no, it's only open for these things. And when you make it okay and you make it normal, and especially construction guys in the age groups that we're talking about, late 30s all the way up until their 60s, those guys were just taught to suck it up. It's not a big deal. But now that they're saying, you know what, it's okay. My boss did it. Oh, and this guy did it. You know what? Yeah, I need to say something.
Sometimes all it takes is one person, to do it, and then it becomes okay.
Right.
There's another lady that she talks on suicide and construction, and her whole thing is about asking the question, asking somebody if they're okay, but like, are you really okay?
Yeah.
And being prepared to listen, right? I saw this, I don't know, like a reel or something somebody said to me, and it's all these people going, oh, how are you doing? And then as they start to say, oh, well, I'm not, the other person just turns and walk away. Right. And it's that over and over and over again. And I'm thinking this is going to be some like mental, suicide kind of thing. Well, at the end, the guy finally goes to the doctor and he writes on the prescription pad for a motorcycle. The whole thing was for a motorcycle.
But it was so real.
Exactly.
That's how it is.
Exactly what it's like, though, is somebody said they're just asking how you're doing to be polite. They don't actually want to sit and listen.
Yeah.
And so to ask that question, like, how are you doing? Like, how are you really doing, though?
Yeah.
How are things really going? And like you said, noticing, like, hey, I noticed that things have been different. I've noticed, like, I mean, I know, like with me, when I'm not happy, if I'm stressed, when I'm sad, I just I do not eat. And people will be like, oh, I noticed you've lost a lot of weight. Like, I don't mean to be rude, but it's like, no, it's because whatever happened and I just don't eat anymore, which also becomes an issue because when you're not, you need to eat.
Right.
So when you're at work and you're suddenly, look like you're 10, 15 pounds down, it's like, hey, what's going on?
Now the question is, though, are you on Ozempic or are you stressed out?
See, now, yeah.
But those are all really good points. It's really, if you're going to ask the question, be prepared to listen.
Be genuine.
And I think that's one thing that we talk about in one of the courses we've taught as well is if you're going to ask the question and you're genuine, but you don't have a lot of time, know what that time limit is and have a backup person ready to bring them in and saying, hey, guess what? And so if somebody says, oh, I'm not doing okay. And you're like, okay, well, tell me about this. I've got a few minutes and I can dedicate right now to you. But if you need longer than this, let's go over here and talk to Joe because he has the time and he's already committed that he'll be here for you. And then I'll check back in with you later. I think that's a really good way to transition it is always have that backup person. If you know you don't have the time other than maybe a few minutes, but you care. And that goes both ways. It shows that you're caring for the person. You come back and check on them and make sure they were okay. But then they got the person to listen to them as well. And I had one lady that talked about it when we had that discussion in class that she had done that, but she had done it because she didn't feel comfortable in the conversation with the person that needed to have it. And so she was able to say, you know what, let's get somebody else involved. And it was a male with her, male, female. So she went and grabbed a male because it was that type of conversation. It was really borderline sexual harassment. And so she didn't feel comfortable being the female in that conversation, was able to grab him and do the same thing. She said she checked back hours later after they had talked and followed up with him and everything was okay. But have a backup plan.
Yeah.
Have that person at your place of business that you can call if you need that extra help, or have that person at home or that friend that you can call if you need that extra help if you get in that type of situation. It's about that planning piece.
Yeah, my friend at Kennecott, they have like a whole team.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's great. At my last job, like, it's just me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, who would be? I'd have to like really think about that.
Right.
Like, okay, I could send them to them. 'Cause
I'm
not everybody is prepared to, they don't have the right kind of temperament to deal with.
I'm really lucky because I have a whole swarm of therapists that I get to call on if I can't handle a situation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you have the anomaly. Well, you bring up Kennecott, and Kennecott started something this year. It's the Safety Champion program. I think that's great, where they have actual people that are working for Rio Tinto there, but then they're bringing in selected contractors and their safety person to talk about what they're doing and seeing what's working, what's not working, and trying to, I guess, better their safety program. But it is programs like that you've got to try. You've got to step outside of your comfort zone and say, you know what? Let's ask contractors to come in. Let's use Big D for an example. They're a huge general, and they always have subs after subs after subs on jobs for them. If they were doing that when they hired, and maybe they do this, but when they bring those subs in to say, look, this is our safety standard, this is our mental health program. If you have anything, this is how we do it. We want you to adopt this. I think if more people were working together, and maybe that sub comes and says, well, we actually do this and it's been even better. And like, okay, well, let's change.
Yeah.
Having that communication between contractors and subcontractors, I think can really change the construction industry if more people would kind of step back and say, hey, let's work together on this.
Sharing is great. So I'm a member of the Utah chapter of the American Society of Safety Professionals. And so I work with a lot of safety professionals, and I know a lot of the safety guys at different construction places. And, we all have these meetings and we get together and we share. And so it's great. But like you said, they got to be able to get the information out to everybody. And it can't just stay with like one safety person, and it needs to become, this is how we do it. Even just where I worked before, when we'd have contractors come in for different things, it's like, okay, they need to be aware of these policies. This is the training. When we'd have temps come in, they went through our regular safety training.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let them go out and work until they went through our safety training, and not a shortened version. Like, you need to know this is
how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I think that's how it should be. I think so many times people have those temps, so the travelers are different, where they pull in, temporary people. They throw them through the condensed version because they need to get them out to the job. That doesn't work. What are you saying to that person when you say, hey, we're just going to give you the condensed version? Are you saying that we don't care much about you as we do our own employees? We're not going to put you through the same training?
Yeah.
But really, they're endangering their employees at the same time, because guess what? They didn't know all the policies. They didn't go through it. And I think it's that consistent. You need to be consistent.
And, when you're saying to your employees how important safety is, and then to these people, if you're putting them through a condensed version, you're not saying that safety is important.
Right. It's a subcategory. We're just doing this because we have to check the boxes.
Exactly. And so, sorry, these keep like sliding backwards. So yeah, it's important, that consistency of the safety, and it needs to be our total safety.
And it needs to be from the top down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
Sarah, I have a question for you.
Okay.
With your line of work
Mm-hmm.
and the things that you do in your work, but also outside of work, and the trainings and everything, what is the biggest benefit that you get personally from the work that you do?
It makes me feel good, I guess. I worked before college, I worked for this company, very, very big company, and they talk a big, big safety talk. But they don't walk that safety walk. And I didn't like that. And it makes me feel good to help people. And like, when it comes to the mental health, if I can help one person to not have to go through what Max and I have gone through and what his dad's family has gone through. Andy and I, even after we divorced, he still called my kids his stepkids. And it's like, it was hard for them. My oldest son, Andy, was there for those really key years in his life. And He actually took it really hard. And it's like just to be able to help anybody to not have to go through that. That to know that, when that employee, when he came back to work and he was like, "You saved my life." He had this little trinket that he brought back for me, and he's like, I have this for you, and I want to say thank you. You saved my life." And it's like his kids won't have to go through, you know, what we ended up going through. And it like just knowing that it helps anybody.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I have one more question as well.
Okay.
After going through what you went through, it's a two-part question. One is, how is Max doing now? And two is, do you have any advice for any other families out there that have children that have had a parent die by suicide? What advice would you give to them to tell their children?
Okay. Well, first with Max, that one is actually really hard because Max doesn't open up to me about it. The detective had told me not to even tell Max how his dad died until we could get him in front of a therapist. But what's his first question?
Yeah.
He's like, was it an accident or was it his choice? I can't lie to him.
Yeah.
And it was not long after COVID, so it's hard to get into a therapist. First one we got, he didn't like. But because of the Safe Kids Utah app, Max and some friends were talking about suicide. He said that he was talking about his dad, not himself, but somebody reported him. And because somebody reported him, he now talks with a social worker or psychologist, whoever the guy is at school. They had to call and had to fill out papers and everything. And this year, Max is a senior. His counselor, I don't know what his official, he told me he was a social worker. Max told me he's a psychologist. But anyways, he called me at the beginning of the school year and was like, I have a list of a few kids from last year that I'd like to continue to work with. And Max is one of them. So I know that he sees Max every week. And so I know that Max has somebody to talk to, so like if there's something that happens or something I'm concerned about, I can shoot him an email and say, hey, I'm worried about this. Could you bring this up with Max? Because Max will not talk to me about it at all.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's that point where he's at that age. Sometimes kids will open up to their parents and sometimes they won't. And if they won't, it sounds like you've at least found an outlet that he can.
yeah, I hope that after high school, he will continue to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
I tell people that, I was like, he's half Galvez. We just shove our feelings deep down inside.
Yeah.
So.
And he's a teenage boy.
And he's a teenage boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, second question, advice for people.
Yeah.
So I always tell people to be there, right? But to be there in 6 months, right? Everybody's there at the beginning. Everybody's sending food, everybody, flowers. They want to know how you're doing. Let me, buy you groceries and help you clean or take Max out or something like that, right? But after the funeral, everybody just goes back to their lives and you're still sitting here and your world has been turned upside down. And you're just like, how can people just
take off?
Yeah. And they're just going back to normal and you're still sitting here. Your world is just destroyed. And so I tell people, it's like, I'm like, even, Max's siblings, it's like, it's great that you guys are here right now. Max needs you in 6 months.
Yeah.
Right. Take him out to coffee, take him golfing, play games with him, whatever. I had a friend and her dad died by suicide. And I had been dating this guy and he was complaining to her about me that I wasn't like loving enough or whatever. And she was like, you know what? She's like, Sarah has never once asked me since my dad died how I'm doing or if I'm okay. She's never said sorry for your loss. And she goes, but I know she cares because she asked me to go to lunch every single day. She's like, I have not had to eat lunch by myself one day. And she's like, and that's how I know she cares.
Yeah.
And so it's that being there for people and support groups. They say a child who has a parent that died by suicide is 30 times more likely to die by suicide, which is like terrifying, right? I always tell Max, I'm like, I worry about you in ways that I didn't worry about the other kids when he gets mad at me for something, It's like, give me a break. Okay. but support groups, which is something like I wouldn't have really thought about. And there's support groups for the children, and there's support groups for like I'm just the ex, but
Mhm.
there's still support groups.
Well, and
Like,
Teresa, she is the president up at ABC
hmm
up in North Salt Lake,
hmm
and she is part of. I think she runs it. A survivors of suicide, and they help everybody that was left behind,
yeah,
especially spouses and children is their focus. But anybody who has experienced that, that's what they. I can't remember the foundation. I'm going to have to reach out to her and ask her. But what they're doing is fantastic because it is those people left behind that you need to be there for at our support group. So the I Love You Bro project, that's the one thing we talk about. And a lot of the guys have mentioned, well, I went through this crazy time in my life. And guess what? When it was over, everybody kind of just went back at their lives and they kind of forgot about me. They stopped checking in on me. I think that's the biggest thing is if you know somebody's been through something like that, make the time, even if it is a quick message or a quick phone call or a lunch, just to check in with them, but do it on a regular basis because they appreciate that. And that will help them survive that much longer if they know, you know what, this person's going to check in on me or they do.
they know that people care and that they're not alone. It just even Andy, Max's dad, his best friend. He, makes sure he has Christmas gifts for Max. He takes him ice skating or they go golfing together, because he was a big part of Max's life because,
Right.
they did stuff all together. And so he does that, to make sure like Max knows that.
He's still there.
And he'll invite him to his awards and promotion stuff at school when, he's in the JORT. And so it's good that
It's
he
cool.
keeps that contact with those people. No.
Well, and for the kids, especially, we lost an employee at the place I work. Just a tragic accident at home. But some of our customers had grown up with him and his kids. Like they've been friends for 15, 20 years. And a couple of the guys constantly are going down and checking on his kids still and going and say, hey, let's go out and do this or planning snowmobile trips this winter. And they're in contact. And I think for kids, especially, they need that normal and they need to know that their dad's friends or their mom's friends or whoever care about them too, because they do. And that the fact that some of them are doing that and they have this little community, I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I see that's probably one of the biggest things you can do for a child, no matter what age, is let them know they're carried by all these other people.
Yeah.
And don't just leave them. If you're going to invest the time up front, make sure you can invest the time going forward until maybe they say, hey, guess what? I'm good. I'm going to do this. But let them make that decision.
Max loves to get together with his dad's friends.
Yeah.
On his dad's birthday, they'll have a barbecue and he invites friends over and stuff. And like if his friends are going to go to the cemetery or something, they'll invite Max. Because Max, if I say, oh, hey, you want to go to the cemetery? He's like, no. I'm like, that's fine. I understand. I don't like to go to Uncle Adam's cemetery either. No, that's just not where he is for me.
Yeah.
But if his dad's friends are going, then he wants to go with them. And so
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Yeah, they want to spend the time together and keep the memories because that's what we have left of them is the memories, and you keep those alive by getting together with the people that loved them and celebrating them.
Yeah.
It's an amazing answer. Thank you.
So, as we have been talking a little bit, these companies out there that don't have a lot of anything as far as mental health program or any way to talk about it other than maybe they know they have an EAP, but some of them don't even know what is in that. What type of advice can you give an employee that they can maybe go to their supervisors or whatever and say, hey, what can we do to maybe add this or what are our policies? How does an employee go to them and ask those questions without feeling like they're overstepping? Because I know that's been questions to me from guys like, well, how do I ask that? Because they just don't know.
I think a lot of that has to do with your workplace culture,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Or you find that there's always somebody at work who isn't afraid to say anything and
Yeah.
Right.
speak up about everything. Like I was always that person, right? It's like Sarah. And so but as long as I just feel like nobody should ever be afraid of like getting in trouble or fired for speaking up. But that has a lot to do with the culture. But just
Yeah.
speak up and say it. Say, hey,
Yeah.
we want to know more about this because really they don't they might not know what somebody else might be like, oh, hey, you know what? Yeah, we should talk about that more. We
Right.
should explain, we should post this, we should have better benefits, right? Because sometimes people don't know something unless they're told, unless they're asked, like, so somebody's brought it up. Oh,
Yeah.
hey, people want to know more about this.
Yeah. So maybe even just offering some training to the
Mhm.
employees about what is available other than just the orientation.
Yeah.
Remind them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've even had a couple of people come up to me after speaking, and like, I really wish my work would do something more like this. They just need to speak up
They do.
because they're not going to get it unless they ask for it.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I think we started doing, they call them like brown bags or something. I don't know. We'd do it during lunch hour and it was like once a month. And it's because employees were like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if like somebody came and talked on a different topic? And it could be employees that get up and, we talked about emergency preparedness one time, but it was how to survive a zombie apocalypse, right?
Oh, yeah.
'Cause it's
It's
like,
made it kind of fun. And
that's on the CDC website. So,
Uh.
but it's like, so maybe it's just even say, hey, let's try this. This might be fun. Let's take, and I know that not all workplaces have the ability to do something like that,
right.
but finding a way to say, hey, how can we do this? And I think it's always important for employees, like if you're going to go to your employer and say, hey, let's do something, let's do this, also give them a way that they can do it, right? Here's a suggestion of how we could do it. It's like, I want to do this, and this is how we could do it.
Yeah.
I like that. And I think that's the part that's left out is they don't go with they didn't ask a question, but they don't have a solution that they can present. I think that's a big part.
I would tell the safety committee people that. It's like, if you're going to come with complaints, come with solutions as well.
Yeah.
Because I can't fix all your problems. Tell me how you'd like to see this fixed.
Yeah.
So yeah, as if you're going to go and say, hey, let's talk about mental wellness more, or hey, let's go over the EAP program more, or can you tell me what our health insurance covers for mental wellness visits?
Yeah.
Removing barriers is huge.
Yeah.
It's removing the barrier is really, really big.
A big part of it.
I always tell, like, I put in this story that has like kind of has to do with mental wellness, kind of doesn't. I was riding my motorcycle to Disneyland, right? Family took the car. I'm taking my motorcycle. I'm riding across the desert. I'm dying. I'm having problems. It is so hot. Like, I am dying. I'm stopping every like 30 to 50 miles. I end up at a gas station in Yermo, California, and there's no air conditioning. And I'm sitting outside, and this sheriff pulls up and he makes eye contact with me. And I just lost it. I just started bawling. And he comes over and he's like, what's the matter? And I'm like, I'm so hot. And he lets me sit in his car and cool off until I was ready to, go. And he's like, just make it to Barstow. And I'm like, I have to go to Disneyland tonight. But, I got better and whatever. But anyways, sharing my story on Facebook, and I had friends say, oh, get a cooling vest. But, oh, okay, get a cooling vest. Well, I'm at Disneyland. Hey, here's where Cycle Gear is. Cycle Gear has them in stock. Here's how much they cost. Here's the address, right? So they removed a bunch of the barriers for me to go get that cooling vest. And I mean, yeah, like I was losing I always refer to it as my death ride day.
Yeah.
But it's like they've removed barriers, excuses that I wouldn't have gone and got that cooling vest. I would have been like, no, I'm just gonna,
But they gave you this is the solution. This is how you can do it. I mean,
And
that's
Takes
that's
away
right.
all the excuses.
Right.
It's like you can order it online and just go pick it up.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly what I did. They told me exactly how I could do this with like very little, like putting myself out very little to go get this.
Yeah.
Well, I
It's
think
the same kind of thing. Removing barriers is
right.
huge.
Well, I think that goes just with a lot of things, not just at work, not with just the safety incidents, but just like you said in your motorcycle ride, just in life. If you have a friend that is struggling or complaining, take the excuses away from them, give them a solution. One, they'll probably stop complaining about it to you. Two, you're helping them out because you just took all those barriers down. I think that's a big thing that we in our society do is we just excuse it. How they can deal with it. We don't want to help. We don't want to go that extra step to give somebody some solutions on how to fix it. We just like, go deal with it.
Well, and sometimes I think we don't think about that.
Yeah.
Right? Like Andy had been sad for a while, and I'm like, dude, go to therapy, like go see a doctor, get some antidepressants, right? But I could have helped him find a therapist. I could have, said, hey, here's what your insurance offers.
Right.
And I think that that kind of stuff is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, especially with men and their mental health, their follow through isn't usually very good.
my follow-up wasn't very good.
Well, it comes down to the mental health advocate that I've been talking about with companies and different things, of having that person that does exactly that. They can go to that person, tell them what's going on, and that person can provide them X, Y, and Z information on, here's where you can get this, here's where you can get this, or we can go help you get this. They provide the solutions. They don't give them the advice of which one they should choose, but they give them some options of, here's how we can deal with this problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's really huge when it comes to businesses integrating into the safety program. Is with safety, we have policies. If you're going to be this high, you're going to wear this harness. If you're going to be this high, you have to tie off to this type of thing. We have all these in place for our physical safety. Why aren't we doing the same things with our mental safety of, if you're struggling, here is this number you can call. Here's the on-site therapist or whatever they have available. And if it needs to go farther, then here is your information. But that is how I feel this mental health advocate at every department, at every company. If you have that, that's the person they'll start feeling safer. And then they know the person's there to help them, not just brush them off.
And I think it's great too, like when you have people like that, that they circulate the workplace, right?
Yes.
They get to know people, because nobody wants to just go talk to a stranger.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, okay, well, I've seen her at work, but I've never really talked to
Yeah.
her. That's not who I want to
Yeah.
know. It's
Well, and it goes like first responders. A lot of big construction companies all have first responders on site. They have people trained. That's what they're going to do if an accident happens. But sometimes you don't even know who they are.
yeah.
I've gone to many job sites about, who's your first responder? This person. Who is that person? I don't know. They don't know them. But on the mental health side, you can't have that. You have to break that barrier down, because if they don't know them, are they going to go search out that person like you're saying? They're not. They want to feel comfortable. They want a person like you in the safety department that's going around, that knows everybody, that knows the policies, and they understand that, guess what? You care because you're checking on me.
Yeah. And it's important, like, make that person, have them have a role in orientation or in reoccurring, annual trainings or something,
Right.
so that they remember, oh yeah, that person's there. And they introduce them, like, a lot, because I was part of orientation, everybody knew who I was, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Safety Sarah. And they'd see me in the elevator, but Safety Sarah. It's like, I might not know their name, but
They know who you are.
yeah,
Yep.
we
Mhm.
were in orientation together. And it just, yeah, and then I circulate, right? Go and check fire extinguisher tags, talk to everybody, right? Say
Yep.
hi to everybody. And it's just, you smile and you're a friendly face. It's not like you have to take your whole day, having a gazillion conversations with her. You can, if you have that availability, but just walking around and smiling and saying, hey, how's your family doing? And
Yep.
Letting people know that you genuinely are there and you care.
yep, exactly.
I think that's the very first step that any company can take, is just management in general. They need to be that person. They need to be the person that's walking around and saying hi and being friendly and knowing that, hey, I can go talk to them if I need something, or I'm not scared to go say, hey, this happened. It's
Yeah.
great, because I think that's the biggest part, especially in the construction part of our business, is those guys don't want to go say. They don't want to get somebody in trouble,
No.
because they don't want somebody to do it to them. So they just want to say. But if you have those barriers broke down, hey, I'm not going to get him in trouble. I'm going to keep him safe.
Yes.
And I think that's the mindset that we've got to start changing, is we're keeping them safe physically and mentally
Yeah.
at home and at work, not just why they're here.
It's,
So,
yeah.
well, and it's a few years ago, there was a death, and it was ruled a suicide, but it was in heavy equipment, and everybody didn't know. They didn't know what was going on in this guy's life. But all of a sudden, he drives his truck off the side of a cliff at the job site. And they're like, well, we don't know why. And after some investigation and a few things going on, they had found out that he'd gone through a divorce. He was really depressed, but nobody knew because he wasn't talking about it. They didn't feel safe. So you take that scenario, how could that have changed? There's so many ways that could have gone such a better direction, because it costs the company millions of dollars in equipment damage and personal damage because he died on the job. So it is being that person. knowing what's going on, just making sure people know that they're cared about.
Yeah.
And you're happy they're there working. Even if you don't know their name,
Mhm.
they know you.
Yep.
I think that's great.
Yeah, a job I worked at several years ago, it was a younger employee. He might have only been like 19. He was kind of quiet, kept to himself, and I don't even know how long he worked with us, but he died by suicide. They had to, oh, he's not with us anymore, it's it's like I remember thinking like, oh, I wish I had made more of an effort to talk to him.
Yeah.
And I was just a regular coworker. Safety wasn't my job or anything, but it's like I wish I had made more of an effort
Yeah.
to talk to him and just, but because some people you're just like, oh, they're just quiet. They always keep to
Yeah.
themselves. Kind of let that be, and you don't. But really, you should get to know. Or like, have you seen the commercial? It's two old men, and they have season tickets to a football game. It shows them every year sitting in the same two seats, coming in sitting in the same two seats. And one's happy, and the other one's super grumpy, and so it does that several times. And then one year, the grumpy guy shows up, and not the happy guy, and he puts the guy's scarf over his seat. And like you knew it was coming this way, but you expected it to be the grumpy guy. And I always tell people like, oh, check on your strong friends.
Right.
And it's like just because somebody seems like they're happy all the time, they're outgoing all the time,
Doesn't mean that something's not going on behind the scenes. I will coin this term sometime.
Referenced it.
I call it the Robin Williams syndrome. That man wanted to make sure everybody around him was happy all the time. So he was that strong. Like everybody's seen him as the strong person, the happy person, the funny person, always the life of the party. But there was so much going on behind the scenes that nobody knew. It is asking those strong, making sure you check on them.
Yeah. I can't think of his name right now. DJ Twitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
That was another one.
Another one.
Yeah.
Why?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are just like, he wouldn't do this. He wouldn't do this to his kids. He was happy. I saw his videos, this and that. And I'll talk about that too. Like when I talk about like Andy, the detective, one thing he said to me, I told you, is that when somebody's ready to die by suicide, their brain has changed chemically.
Hmm.
They are not the person we know and we love anymore, the person that wouldn't do this to their family. And so you can never just say like, oh, well, they wouldn't do this. I don't have to worry because he wouldn't do that to us.
Yeah.
There's a chemical change that happens in their brain when they are ready to die by suicide. So it doesn't matter how happy and strong and, or that they hide their pain well,
Yeah. Because they just hide it well. I mean, that's all it is. Yeah. So I want to ask your opinion. When you lose a coworker by suicide, do you think it's appropriate for the company to talk about that? Or I see way too often it gets swept under the rug. I personally don't agree with that. I think it needs to be talked about maybe in a general term so that people know. But what's your take on that? What advice do you have for companies when that happens?
I think that it should be talked about in general terms, nothing
Specific.
yeah, should be talked about. But I think that, like you said, it shouldn't be swept under the rug. And if they died by suicide, like say that needs to be said, right? I worked at a place where we had a coworker who died and everybody's chatting about, oh, how did it happen? I heard it was this, I heard it was that, right? And it takes away. It's instead of us talking about, mental health, we're talking about we're gossiping, we're rumors, right? But I feel like the companies need to make sure that what they do for one, they do for all, right? So it can't be like, oh, the first time we're going to do this. Oh, well, here's another one. We're not going to do that now. If like, all of your executives went to the one guy's funeral, then you need to make sure some go to the other person's.
Yeah.
Right? Like you need to just have these ways that you do things and show that it's important and that these people are important as people.
Yeah.
Not just as an employee. And it's having those direct conversations, and depending on the size of the company or whatever, maybe you just pull in the department that person worked in and you have a little meeting and saying, guess what? We've lost an employee. This is what happened. We're keeping any other details. That's up to the family. We want to make sure you guys are okay and we want to talk through this. Having that direct conversation, because there might be questions and you don't want the gossip. You want to be able to have them right then and there and kind of nix any of that gossip, because that person was struggling and you don't want to tarnish their name or their memories by other people gossiping about him in the workplace.
I also think it's important to offer or let employees know how they could get some kind of like counseling if they need it, just like
Right.
the schools do.
Yeah.
Because these people may be close and you might be a coworker that maybe you weren't incredibly close with, but for some reason it really impacts you,
Impact.
Right.
right?
Mhm.
It's really hitting you and you do need somebody to talk to and you need those barriers removed of like, how can I go talk to somebody?
Yeah.
Because now I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the hardest things for me is when I was in the middle of recovering. We lost a coworker and then I lost a friend, but when that coworker was lost, it was hush hush. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to say this. Nobody wanted to talk about it. And I want to say a month later, maybe a little bit longer, like, well, this happened. And just so you guys know, if anybody needs to talk to a therapist, like, this is a month later. That conversation should have happened immediately.
Mhm.
Yeah.
People need to know that there are resources available. Like you say, you might not be really close, but you might be in a situation
That's similar.
that's similar and it really impacts you and it
Mhm.
could push you one way or another. And so it is having those direct conversations and not sweeping it under the rug. I think it's very important. And I just see it and hear about it too much still,
Yeah.
but it's not. So,
I had a former coworker reach out to me, I don't know, last year or something, maybe this year, I don't even know. And he had a very good friend whose son died by suicide,
Mm.
and he's like, how can I fix it? It's like, you can't fix it. But we talked about the being there stuff and potentially like referring his friend, like letting him know about those support groups and places that maybe he can go
Mhm.
find some help because he's just like, I want to fix it. And he was like really sad, for his
yeah,
friend. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't have a magic answer for you. But he was like, the talking to you is like making me feel a lot better.
yeah, that's all
Have
they need.
somebody to talk to and letting your employees know that there's somebody.
Right. Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. I mean, so much good information. I think we could talk about this for hours. I know we could talk about this for hours. But as we kind of wrap up in this space with anybody listening, if they're an employee or if they're an employer or if they're in a place of management, what type of resources are out there that you know of or that maybe you guys can even provide that these companies can start utilizing if they want to make mental health and suicide prevention more of a normalized thing at their place of business?
You can Google suicide prevention or whatever, like Utah or Tennessee or whatever. All these states have all these resources. So, Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce had made some kind of suicide awareness program for construction. And I think I heard about it when I was at Big D. And so I Googled that. And when I do this, it's like, here's resources, and it's a toolkit, so it gives you PowerPoints or whatever. I'm going to this national conference to speak. And so I just Googled some random states and they all have how to get, mental wellness, talking about it in your workplace and how to set up, these mental health support programs at work. And it's just like there was so much right there, and I just had no idea. I just had to Google, mental health help Utah, Tennessee. They all have programs. And so I tell people, like, you should look at a few of these programs because they usually all have toolkits, right? And as long as it's not something that is like being funded by that state that you obviously can't provide, words are interchangeable, right? And so is if it's a PowerPoint that you can just take, you know, whatever state, Colorado and put Utah or whatever, or just we care or just borrow some of this material, right? Like there is so much out there. So if you have no idea how to even get started on how to make a mental health program for your work, you just Google it and the state you're in. And there is so much information. It is just absolutely, I was shocked at how much information all these states have this information available.
That's one of the easiest things. Everybody knows how to use Google.
Well, and I think it's the simplest answer, but it's the answer that not a lot of people ever expect. I guess I could do that. So start with the simplest thing is just look it up and see what's available.
I think sometimes it's knowing what to Google, right?
Yeah.
I only thought to Google about the other states because I had heard that Utah has a program. And it was geared towards construction. And so I just Googled like mental health awareness and then started putting in different cities or states just to see what they offer. But if I hadn't had that first piece of information, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have even thought to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
It's amazing advice.
Simplest thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, while we're on that note, just so you know, I don't know if you've heard, but AFSP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, just released last month their specific construction suicide course.
Oh.
And they have 2 versions. The first version is your 90-minute, 90-minute to 2-hour, like your QPR style training. The other one is a toolbox 15 to 20-minute version that you can have at an easy monthly safety meeting.
Oh, that's great.
And so that is coming. We have one trainer in Utah. He is working on getting a lot of us trained in it. By the end of the year, we should have about a dozen that he's trying, because he does work full time as a safety person and he does this on the side. And so he's trying to get through and get people trained. But by the end of the year, we should have like a dozen people that are able to teach that construction specific class, which it's great. And the 15 to 20-minute version one, I think is amazing, because I visit a lot of different small mining site or job sites, and each one of those you could do a training in the morning at their safety meeting and then start that normalization conversation. Yep. So that is available now. They released it in 1st of September. So it's out there, and every state has people to do it. Yep. So that's another option too.
Like you said, it's just that normalizing it, making, some of your toolbox talks are about your mental health, mental wellness. Mm-hmm. And it just becomes part of the conversation. How are you doing? Doing a 15-minute training.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And talking about the other things that create mental health, sleep, food, like you were talking about. All these things, if you start talking about them in your safety meetings, hey, did everybody bring a lunch today? Or hey, did everybody eat breakfast today? Or has anybody not had anything other than coffee today? All these conversations, but normalizing those so these guys know, oh, you know what? Because I'm doing X, Y, and Z, I'm not functioning at my best level. Maybe I need to start eating and I'll feel better in my mental health. So it is all these small little things that you can start integrating as well.
Yeah. I would always tell people in safety training, especially when we talk about home safety, I say, if you're not safe at home, then you can't come to work, right? Yeah. And, people always say, what's your why for working or whatever? If you get hurt at home, then you can't come to work and you can't earn a paycheck. You can't provide for your family or provide your dog the kind of life you want to, or right. buy motorcycle parts. And so it's important. Yeah, we want you to be safe at home. We want you to be safe outside of work,
And it's talking about it. The last company I worked at 2 companies ago, when we had safety discussions, we talked about a safety before every meeting. Didn't matter what the meeting was about. We always had a quick little safety discussion, but it was always bring something to the table that you have done. I remember one guy talking about how he had made all his teenage boys wear safety glasses when they're weed eating and wear a pair of pants, and explain to them why. I had another guy that came out and talked about how he started with his wife to do a 360 walk around because she had ran over toys in the driveway. But again, it's now just becoming a habit of let's be safer at home. And it is bring those experiences to the workplace. Talk about what you're doing at home, because guess what? Somebody else might be doing it at home and they need to hear that you have figured out a way to make it safer. And again, like you say, you have to be safe at home to be able to be safe at work.
Yeah.
So
and talk about proper lifting and lowering method.
Yep.
And it's like, when you're picking up children, you're moving furniture, you're, just things, at home.
Yeah.
Make it relatable, because people are like, I don't care about lifting and lowering.
Right.
Like, well, care about it.
Yeah, it is one of those things that's being talked about. So that's great advice. Well, we always end these. We turn the table to you. Oh. You know just this much about either of us. What question do you have for both of us, each of us individually? What do you want to know? It's your turn.
Or one or the other.
What are your guys' favorite, hobbies? What do you like to do that is outside of work, whether it's to relax or it's like, this is a hobby I like to make, I like to, whatever.
So we have hobbies together, and we also have separate hobbies, so that we do on our own.
Okay, what's your together hobbies and your separate hobbies?
Our together hobby is concerts.
Yep.
Really. Mm-hmm. We love doing
concerts and movies.
Movies. And then this is my 10th trip, 9th trip to Moab this year. And so we've just really kind of fell in love with going out and playing on the rocks, and we're starting to do it more as a family. I think that's kind of our together thing. We get to do that. So that's been fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. What is your personal ones you like to do? Name just 2.
Okay, because I have a ton of hobbies. It's kind of ridiculous. But my top 2 right now would be like painting, crafting, anything like that, and then gardening.
That's
so
nice.
they're seasonal. Gardening in the summer, arts and crafts, and painting during the winter.
For me, it's mountain biking is probably my number 1. I try to get out as much as possible. I love being on 2 wheels. She won't let me have a motorcycle right now, so that's all I get.
Not till the boys are 18.
So that, and I really enjoy, I've really taken the last couple of years kind of my wellness more of a priority. We have a cold tub, a sauna, everything here at the house. And I enjoy that time for me.
That's nice.
Sometimes we do a little bit together, but most of the time I'm like, I'm going down to do this for 30 minutes. Leave me alone. And that is kind of where I reset. And so that's really important to me is really that wellness of taking that time and doing that. So that and playing with the dogs.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
They keep us busy. Well, great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Everybody asks us so deep questions all the time. It's nice to have
It's
something.
nice to have a simple question. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I had a good question then.
Yeah.
But really, thank you for your time. This has been awesome. And if anybody ever wants to get out and ask Sarah more questions, have her come speak at an event, you're available, reach out to us. We can get you guys in contact. Just hop on the website, hit our contact button, reach out to us, and we can introduce you or get you in contact with Sarah the best way, depending on what you're looking for. She's amazing. She can help your company out. If you're looking for safety plans, different things, reach out to her.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do a lot of safety stuff.
Yeah.
I love it. Like I
You've
said,
been doing it a long time. And the best thing is you love doing it. I can tell. You love being part of it. So
I really love what I do.
Yeah. We have a passion for it.
I do.
that's great. So thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you for tuning in again. We couldn't do it without you guys. The only reason this is here is because you all tune in every week. You share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And again, that's our challenge this week. If you have a fellow employee, if you have a coworker, if you have a boss that needs to hear some of the information we've talked about today, send them the little hint by sharing our episode to them in an email. Let them know about what we're doing here. We love to help out. Reach out to us also if you want any suicide prevention training, mental health first aid, all these things are available. We'd love to come out and help you guys. That's why we do this every week, is we love to sit down and provide information so that we can help that one person that maybe needed to hear it this week. So thank you again. And don't forget, you guys are a big deal.